Welcome to Nothing Important Happened Today podcast. I am Martin. So today I would like to talk about, in this actual first episode on my commenting on daily occurrences and such here in Thailand, I would like to talk a bit about freedom of expression. And there was this article I saw a couple of days ago. It was about an artist who had received a title here in Thailand of national artist, and it's basically a title that's given out. I'm not sure exactly how many that are receiving this, but I saw some numbers. It's been going on for 36 years, and it's been a bit more than 300 artists so far that's been given this title in various fields of art, so to speak. And this is the article I saw first was, let's see if I can get this up. Here. It says, the headline says, National Artist Suchart loses title over protest support. So, first of all, you need to forgive me for my pronunciation of Thai names. I'm horrible, I know, I will try to get better. But either way, so I read this a couple of days ago, and unfortunately these things come up now and then, and it's unfortunately, censorship and the government trying to silence voices they don't really like hearing, so to speak, voices that shouldn't be heard by the general public. And in this instance, it was just this artist basically voicing support for the current protests that is going on against the government. And let's see here. Well, this first article doesn't really say a whole lot, right? It just says that the National Culture Committee has decided to strip veteran editor Suchart Sawasdsri of his national artist title due to inappropriate behavior in connection with support for protests over political reforms. And this guy probably has money. It should be okay. The title itself, to me, it sounds it's more honorary than, it's not like the Nobel Prize where you actually get rich if you get the prize. This is an award that will give you 25,000 baht per month. It will give you some medical insurance. You will have your funeral costs covered when you die. And you can also get some other things like some financial contribution to, for example, a biography, etc., etc. But either way, it's not quite that simple either, because if you get stripped of this title, there might be more severe punishment coming, as I mentioned a bit further down in the article. And they said that Suchart is the first national artist to be stripped of the title after taking an outspoken stance in support of protesters whose demands include reform of the monarchy. And they write here, according to regulations, national artists whose behavior is deemed inappropriate are liable to imprisonment as punishment, depending on the severity of their misconduct. And as they also write here, it needs to be a majority of the committee that comes to this conclusion, and yes, all title benefits are withdrawn. But basically, he can become put in jail, or he can be charged with inappropriate behavior by just voicing support for this pro-democracy movement. And this is an artist. We're talking about artists, the people who are, it's the society's real creative lung, if you will, right? It's usually artists and thinkers that come up with ideas and narratives and views that makes society change, right? They're not the only ones, but they're certainly a driving force. And I see a big problem with someone like Suchart here getting the stick, so to speak, right? And like I said, the first article pretty much like just stating the facts, and it's usually how the way it goes down here. They don't want to be voicing too many opinions in the media, and well, you see the reason why. But here is the article I saw today, and this is the Bangkok Post, and you can see here is the Bangkok Post editorial column. So it's the editorial board that has come to this and done this more like in-depth review. It's not that long, but it's still quite, you know, it's a good voicing of concerns. Someone is the same as that I got when I read this article, and they go. Well, first they just state again the facts, kind of like they did in the first article. But it says that on Friday, Air Chief Marshal Veravit Kongsak, a leading member of the committee, officially announced the decision to strip veteran editor Suchart Sawasdsri of the badge, citing inappropriate behavior in connection with his outspoken stance in support to pro-reform, anti-government protests, and he has 30 days to appeal. Something I doubt that he will. First of all, this is quite disturbing to me, and here we have a leading member on the committee, Air Chief Marshal. What on earth is an Air Chief Marshal doing on the board of a national cultural committee? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense, right? And this is basically the same people, right, that are in power, so it doesn't make any sense at all. But let's go on. It says that Suchart is the first national artist to be stripped of the title after backing the groups, and whose demands include the reform of the monarchy. He had previously gone so far to dare the panel to censure him for his publicly expressed opinions on Facebook, so it remains to be seen whether he will bother to lodge his appeal. Yeah, so sounds unlikely. But it says here, and this is where they start to basically comment on this matter, right? It's a lot of healthy criticism coming here. It says that regardless of his political stance, the National Committee should rectify this grave mistake by reversing the decision promptly. In taking such action, the committee has undermined the freedom of expression that underpins the art scene and drives creative endeavor. What it has done is of no help to artists in Thailand whatsoever. This is very much true. I mean, the freedom of expression should be strongest for artists, almost. I mean, to me, everyone should be able to express their opinions, right? If you go so far to censure people and to, you know, it's a very bad idea. And what you see when that happens is just things going wrong. You can look back in history at this, and it's not pretty. You can, for example, look at a country a bit north of here. But either way, we have a person who has been active since back in the 60s, and he has I mean, I don't know exactly 100% about this artist, right? But I've been reading up a little, and it seems like it should come to as no surprise to this National Cultural Committee what kind of background he has. And it seems like he's been having very strong opinions over a long time. And he was, he was active before the big uprising in 1973. I mean, I won't go much into that now. That's certainly a lot of things that we can discuss another time. But you had this big uprising back in 73. due to students getting locked up for basically wanting to support getting a new constitution drafted. And we, I mean, back then, as it always is here in Thailand, is you have a lot of these coup makers, and it's just, let's not go further into that. But he was active back then, and back then if you look at the artists and the thinkers and stuff, you had a lot of them that were very left-leaning, right? You had communists, and you had a more unified movement. But continuing on, they write the following: by stripping the title from an artist who sided with anti-government protesters, the committee has only succeeded in cementing the brand image of a narrow-minded authoritarian regime, while undermining the institution it was originally commissioned to nourish and celebrate. Penalizing a rebellious artist sends a message that that threatens to stifle the budding seeds of creativity shown by the current generation of young artists. Such distasteful pseudo-censorship is contrary to the remit of a committee whose duty it is to promote arts and culture, not silence the voices of those artists who refuse to toe the government line. Sorry, a bit dry in the throat here. And I mean, this is just crazy. We have people who are just basically agreeing with other people getting, absolutely trashed. And I certainly hope that this will be a bigger story. I don't think it will be, but we'll see. I just want to give you a little sense of where this guy comes from, because when I was doing a little research, it was important for me to kind of understand where he's coming from. So I found this interview from a couple of years ago. And this is from a site called wordswithoutborders.org, and they're talking about. This is from 2016, and of course the current coup happened in 2014. So we're already a couple of years into the current coup, so to speak. It was still not. It was still in the period when the Prayut, the current prime minister / former junta leader or coup leader, when he was still he wasn't prime minister yet, so to speak. There were no voting. There was no well, and we can go further into that as well, of course, but. In short, they ask Suchart, can you compare the situation now to the October 14 era in terms of how writers are reacting to the political situation? And this is, of course, the uprising they're referring to that was happening back in 1973. And he's saying that there's an atmosphere of a lack of unity, unlike 40 years ago. Back then, artists and writers moved in solidarity mostly. They were against the dictatorship, against the military government. They called for liberty and democracy. There might have been ideological disagreements, but they were just ideologies. Even though people held socialist ideals, some lean more towards communism, other towards liberal democracy. That's normal for an open society. At least as far as writers go. During the October 14 era, there was freedom. The latest coup has fractured artists into 3 groups. The first group take a stand against the military coup. I made it known that this is my stance. Our stance is there must be an election, there must be a democracy, liberty. We have to get back to a society where each person gets 1 vote. The second group sides with the coup. Since the most recent coup, there are artists and writers who don't show their hand. I call them blenders. A lot of writers are in this third group. They should show some sign in their position as artists. They should have a stance. And then they go on with asking, for the writers who have shown a clear stance in support of democracy, it seems no one has written a literature that comes right out and says it. Are they afraid? How's the censorship situation? And this is according, or if you look at the first answer that he gave, and also this one, you get a pretty clear sense of like where he's standing in these matters. And he goes on by saying that it's self-censorship. With writer and artists and poets, the picture is not the same as 40 years ago. I'm talking about people who are 50 and up, who are 60 and 70, people of my age. What's interesting is young people, the people who are the future of our country. They are the ones coming out and showing movement and showing signs, and they get bullied. So it's turning out to be the people of the new generation. I have hope. Among writers, people have to censor themselves. When we want to write something or anything about the royalty, they have to praise. They can't criticize. There isn't total freedom. It's become a political tool. They should be allowed to talk about it creatively. There are people who have tried to form an initiative to repeal the section, the so-called Section 1112, the lèse majesté law, but many have been punished. And this is kind of what it all comes back to, right? The current situation down here, I mean, the big problem is exactly that. It's this Section 112, which I also will hopefully get more into later, but it is what it says. It's self-censorship, right? No one is, well, I shouldn't say no one, but very few people dare to actually express what's on their mind. Very few people dare to just, I mean, people are talking behind doors, so to speak, like, if they're talking, in private, so to speak. But publicly, it's very, you basically destroy yourself, right? And it's sad to see. It's really, really sad to see. And for artists, I mean, if they have to self-censor themselves, how are they going to be? I mean, how are they really going to function as artists? It doesn't go very well together. So I think it's just a really, really bad situation we have here. And yeah. Like I said, I doubt that he will file any appeal to this, but it should be interesting what comes out of it. And if I see anything coming, I will certainly comment on it. And I mean, for me, I when I was checking a little here, I saw this quote that kind of came to me. It's from a German artist from back in the days. Joseph Beuys, he wrote that to make people free is the aim of art. Therefore, art for me is the science of freedom. All right, guys, I will sign out for this time, and we'll see if there will be a possibility to come back to this topic. I hope so. I really want to see what's going to be the outcome. I don't have high hopes that that the committee is going to rectify the decision, but let's see.